What's up, Chris Albert?
What's up?
How's it going, man?
Good. I got a microphone in front of my face.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
And you got a microphone in your face.
Coffee, so I'm alright.
Holy shit, man. You busted me up with the hell run yesterday.
That was a good run, man. We started out with some hills, and then we did some more hills. And the cool part about that run is, like, it puts you into that, like, fight or flight mode at the beginning when we hit that hill. And then you go through that, and you're like, holy crap, I'm dying. And so your monkey brain is telling you to stop. But then you go down the hill, and your monkey brain's like, go a little bit faster, right? Go a little bit faster. You can do that, right? But then another hill comes up, and then it's like, oh man, this and that hill is steeper. Like the second hill is way steeper.
Way steeper.
And so you're like, oh my god, right? And then you get through that, then you go into flat land, your monkey brain starts calming down a little bit, and it's faster, and then it's a really long run. I mean, it could be as little as 5. We didn't really measure it out.
Yeah.
Or it could be as much as 7. So, and which is not a long run for like most people.
And those first 2 hills are like actually about a quarter of the way. So
yeah,
I'm already dying.
They're really big. So like after a while, your brain's like, well, maybe you ran enough today. But the cool part about that run is like there's so many twists and turns. Like you can't get home. The only way to get home is running. So your job the whole time is you're making your monkey brain like completely schizophrenic, and your job is to be the calm guy in the room. And just be like, just keep a solid pace, keep going, control your breathing. And I'm not like a runner. Like I was never a good runner. I'm still not a good runner. Like my girlfriend Shauna, she's a cross country athlete. Yeah, she could leave me in the dust. But the reason why I run is it's almost like a calming drug to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So like when you run and you go through something like that, afterwards it's like really calming experience. You get all these happy chemicals generated in your system, and I feel great for the rest of the day. Like I slept like a baby last night. It felt really good. I got some good work done last night after we got home. I got some good sun, good vitamin D, and it got to be out in nature. And that was awesome.
Yeah, it's a great stress reliever, and I find that it's actually exorcism.
Oh yeah, you're definitely working out. I mean, like. Our friend Brian Rose, he's doing that Ironman training right now, and we talked about, he's taking 90 days to do something. But people who do that, I'm fascinated by. People who do ultra marathons, I'm fascinated by, because you got to think about the demons you're trying to work out in your head while you're running 100 miles, right? What are you thinking? I mean, I've never done anything like that. So, like, what are you thinking at mile 50? Like, what are you thinking at that point? Is it like I couldn't imagine. I mean, part of me wants to do one, just because. But then part of me is like, well, maybe I should. You know what I mean? So I've always been wondering about that.
Like, what's the point? But I guess the thing is, it's like finding out where your line is, your limit, or your perceived limit. Because I had never run that far yesterday, and with hills. Yeah. And I just kept talking to myself. That monkey brain schizo was just saying, just keep going. At a certain point, like I actually stopped and just walked, and then caught my breath, and then just kept going. At any point I could turn back, but if I turned back it would have been just as long.
Yeah, well that's it. I mean, my background is as a power lifter, right? So like cardio was not something that I always wanted to do, but now it's part of my daily routine, and it's not for the fat loss. Like I'm skinny enough, right?
Yeah, you're pretty lean.
It's not for anything except to keep my mind right, and I keep it in as part of my daily routine. Whether it's running, 5, 6, 7 miles, or whether it's just doing a quick jog around the neighborhood, like around noon to 1 o'clock, I got to get outside. I got to get some sun. And it's just a great way to enjoy nature, to enjoy this beautiful scenery I'm lucky enough to live in out here.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because you're stocking everything, right? Like if you were just doing like a sitting silent meditation, you may get that aspect of like working out your demons in your own mind, but you're not working out your body. You're not getting vitamin D. You're not getting the airflow through the system and like sort of flushing out everything. Not moving your body, your muscles, your circulation. And
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I've tried a lot of silent meditation. I've tried I have this weird thing that I'll do. It's called particle meditation.
I love that one.
It's a super weird one. I'll talk about that in a second. But nothing works for me as well. And I'm not saying that silent meditation isn't good, but nothing works for me as well as that experience. Getting out there and just training the monkey brain through doing that kind of hard stuff. You want to hear about particle meditation?
Yeah, please, man. It's hilarious, guys.
So the way this works is I get a really small blanket, right? I'm about 5'8". I'm not a big guy at all, but I'll get a really, really small blanket, like something that my dog Piper would sleep on. And then what I'll do is I will stuff my body entirely underneath it and pin every ounce of the blanket underneath. So I'm really, really like a bubble under the blanket. And what I'll do when I'm doing this particle meditation, I'm in the fetal position, but I'll put on boiling water, right, in a teapot. And so while the water is going, I'm listening to the sound of the particles, listening to the sound of the water beginning to boil. That's what I focus on the whole time. And then as it's going, I'm pretending and in my mind, wondering what a particle would be going through in the water. Is it getting super rapid and going crazy and everything like that? And then when the water starts boiling and starts whistling, it takes about 10 minutes usually. That's when the particle meditation's over. But I've actually found that to be very, very helpful in just giving me a start to my day. It just looks really weird when my girlfriend walks in or you walk in and you see me in a bubble underneath a blanket shaking
violently, like you're turning into vapor.
Steam. Yep. And but it works.
It works.
I definitely suggest trying it. Anybody out there? I mean, don't knock it till it tries.
Well, what came up in your mind to come up with that? Just frustration with regular meditation? Or?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm trying to sit there and say I'll have you look at the way I'm sitting right now, if I'm sitting anywhere and I'm trying to work, I'm constantly going, I'm constantly moving, I'm constantly doing something, right? So what I found it did was it brought a focus to my movement, right? It brought a focus to my movement and something to take my mind off of me constantly criticizing myself for fidgeting, because I'm constantly fidgeting. I work at my desk a lot and my legs are constantly going. I get up probably every 15-20 minutes, just walk over to the kitchen, back, do some squats, come back, just do something. I can't sit still a lot of time. You're gonna have problems with me this whole interview because I can't sit still.
Yes.
And it gave a focus to the movement. It gave a focus and a reason for me to do it, and it took away my self-criticism for constantly fidgeting and getting out of my head when I was because I'm trying to sit there and meditating. I'm trying to think about my breathing, trying to think about everything, and you can get super self-critical about it if you screw it up. How many breaths did I do? Oh wait, no, I messed that up. Oh, my dog Piper made a noise. What the hell, Piper? That kind of stuff. So you don't. That's the thing. It says it's okay. It's okay that you just moved. It's okay that you're shaking. It's okay that you're underneath a blanket.
You have acceptance of who you are.
And part of it is doing that weird thing. Being super weird. And being okay with that.
So you probably have a combination of a monkey mind with a dog mind combined.
Probably something.
You're wired that way, right? So
I don't dissect it that much or anything like that. I wouldn't, I'm not sitting there all day long, being is that my monkey brain or is that this or is that that? And again, I think it's because doing things like the hard runs and the hard workouts, it just kind of helps you organize all that stuff in your head. I think a lot of people, you're sitting there and I've been an entrepreneur for the past 10 years. Probably the scariest thing about it, and I was in the Marine Corps, being an entrepreneur is the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. And you're playing around with all these things in your head, am I going down the right path now? And should I be working on this? Should I be working on that? How should I spend the next 5 to 10 minutes? That kind of stuff's constantly going over in my head. And it really helps to tame all that stuff so I can focus on one thing.
It definitely helps you with organizing. You think that the science or the physiology of that is obviously different from like sitting to moving your body, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. But, it's...
yeah, I guess you don't like analyze it though per se, right? That's just like how you are and how you're wired, so you just kind of come to accept that.
Well, I find when I start to overanalyze things and I start to like try to manage it too much, then it's no longer a practice. It's just like a thing I'm checking off on a list, right? And it's not something I enjoy doing anymore. It's not something I want to do anymore. It's not something I want to incorporate anymore. It's just me doing it and going through the motions, right? If I'm trying to think about it too much. I used to be a bodybuilder and go through all those routines and things like that. The best workouts I ever had as a bodybuilder were the ones where I was just kind of winging it. If I had a plan and I was going in, it was always just me going through the motions. That's one of the reasons why I quit bodybuilding, because it just got so boring.
Right.
And with this kind of way of thinking, I guess it's more, I'm able to incorporate it in my life. It's part of the adventure of every single day. Like the runs, like yesterday's run, you know what's going to happen on the run. I mean, you kind of know the route. But
right. Well, you did. So that's part of the next question, because like I'm running like with blind. I'm pretty much following a guide. So I don't know like how long it's gonna be.
Right.
You know. So I'm just going and going. I'm like, holy shit! For all I know, Chris could be taking me on a marathon.
Yeah. And to tell you the truth, like I didn't know I was gonna take a couple of those turns that we took until like I looked back at you. I saw you're okay and everything like that, and I was like, we can do more.
Yeah,
go more.
Which is fun, because that's kind of like when we get into psychedelics.
Yeah.
And like a guide will pay attention to what the person's experienced and then determine in that moment whether to like help them or to back off.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a point like where we were coming through the park, Prospect Park, and you were like, "Oh man, just go ahead." And I was like, "Dude, we're almost there.
Yeah. And like, I was like done.
Yep.
Yeah, I was toast.
But you had more in you.
Yeah. Well, as soon as like I chilled out, and you kind of like chilled out a little bit.
And that's one of the things I'm talking about. It's like your monkey brain's going to tell you, "All right, stop right now," and part of you really, really wants to listen to that. You really, really want it to be over, but when you keep going and you realize that you're calmer than you think you are, like then that's where the magic happens, because you realize that you're a lot calmer, you're a lot more seen. And one of the things I was thinking yesterday, like I mean I don't know what it's like to be mentally ill or schizophrenic or things like that, but one of the things I realized, and this came up in my mind, we all have that in us. We all have that insanity in us.
Yeah, different degrees.
Right.
And we're not making fun of people that are having the heavy degrees of it.
Not at all. But I'm saying like it could happen to anybody. We literally all have those dark voices in our head, the different personalities. It's just that some people, that part of their brains turned way up.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't imagine
on 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine what it would be like to have that part of my brain turn so far up. But then you think about normal, average, everyday people who aren't diagnosed with a mental illness, but how much of that brain is still turned on, right? That's keeping them in a position where they are horrified every single day, where they're in a state where they see everything as negative,
right?
Where they're in a state where they see, they can see best friends as conspiring against them and things. Because I've been around people like that.
Yeah, they're just like plotting in their head, or they feel like somebody's plotting against them.
Their job, the people they come in contact with every day, out on the road, dealing with road rage, that kind of stuff.
Right. What's fascinating to me with like the science of the brain and the mind, whether it's physiology or psychology, but the fact that like we're all wired similar but also different, and like we don't like I guess you don't analyze yourself so much, but in terms of understanding the science, like maybe there's that evolutionary thing that's going on, why we're getting like hangry and horny in certain moments, right? Like obviously if you're low blood sugar, you haven't eaten in a while, or you're dehydrated, that's gonna affect your mental state, or if you're just trying to like make it day to day, trying to make ends meet, that's gonna affect things, or the combination of everything.
Well, totally. I mean, I mean, if you're talking about like Hangry and Horny, and I mean, dude, like my teens and 20s were ridiculous as far as what I did and like how many things I regret that I did and the experiences I had at that point. You know, I was an awful person back in those days, a really, really awful person. Womanizing, and when I say womanizing, I don't just mean like womanize, like I mean like just going through females like 4 or 5 at a time. Like I had this thing in my head where I had to date a minimum of 4 girls at a time, and if I would go over that, it would be a time management issue. But you know, and
that's really hard to do, man.
And the thing was, I was constantly thinking about like why was I doing that, because it wasn't helping me, and it was because of me not being comfortable in my own skin, like me not being comfortable with me, right? And I was constantly trying to prove to myself that I could do this, right? That I could go out, I could date multiple girls, that I could be this person that I was trying to pretend to be, and it really wasn't until I hit like my 30s that I actually understood that I was just I was really destroying myself by and destroying other people and being an awful human being, because I really hated myself. You know.
Well, what point did you realize that?
It took a lot, right? So I had been dating. The reason why I'm in California in the first place, I had been serving in the Marine Corps, and went overseas in 2003, came back and had this girlfriend, and she stayed with me that whole time, and we stuck together for 5 years. But in that time period, I made her life a living hell, right? Because I was selfish, because I decided that, you know, I had a chip on my shoulder from serving, right? And I said, you know, I spent all this time doing this, I'm gonna have the time of my life, and I'm gonna have my cake, and I'm gonna eat it too. So every opportunity I took, I'd go out to the bars. Every opportunity I had, I would cheat on her. Every opportunity I had, I would do something that was just completely immoral, right? And got to the point where I realized, like, I have no values. Like, I have no code right now. And something in the Marine Corps that I was taught was like, your code, your values are extremely important. But I lost that. And she eventually wised up and she got rid of me. She married somebody else. And the town I come from, Norwalk, Connecticut, it's not a very big town. A lot of people know each other. And I said to myself, and I was in a bitter state. I was feeling sorry for myself. I was blaming her. I was blaming the world. I couldn't see that I had brought all this stuff upon me. And I said to myself, I can either sit here and feel sorry for myself for the rest of my life, drink my face off, and watch everything that's going on here, and live in regret, or I can move on. So that's when I decided I'm gonna head out to California. And so got into grad school out here, went to grad school for a bit, stayed up in Santa Barbara. I'm not saying that healed me at all, it definitely didn't. I was still completely screwed up. But it was at that point that I realized that, like, I was looking in the mirror and I looked a lot older than I was. I was only, you know, in my late 20s at the time, and I was starting to get wrinkles and all kinds of stuff, and I looked like crap. And that's when I decided to stop drinking, right? And I'd always been into fitness at that point, right? But it was at that point where I said, I'm gonna stop this drinking. I'm gonna stop, you know, messing myself up so much, and I'm gonna dedicate my life to fitness. And so that's when I started getting into originally bodybuilding and powerlifting, but that eventually put me on the path to where I am now. Which is more about health, because in the interceding years I also developed ulcerative colitis and a whole host of other things. So
Right. So you think that their symptoms, ulcerative colitis, came from the past, that lifestyle of over drinking and.
Well, I can't say that it was one thing, right?
Okay.
So I think one of the problems that people have is like, when you have an issue like ulcerative colitis, people will go after like one thing. They'll say like, oh, it was the stress, or oh, it was all that bad stuff you did that's adding up to your karma, and then it's your karmic spirit that is being affected right now, right. which I don't buy into either. Yeah. So I can't say it was the alcohol. I can't just say it was the gluten I was eating. I can't say it was the sugar I was eating, because I wasn't eating a whole lot of gluten or sugar either. I can't say that it was a lack of exercise or a lack of healthy lifestyle. What I can say was that it was a number of factors, including genetics, including the environment, that probably added up to give me severe ulcerative colitis. Right. That's the main factor. But when you go through something like that, I mean, you look at yourself and you say, all right, I've always told myself I was a strong human being, but then the universe comes in and they say to you, you're nothing. You're just a pile of carbon that was plucked out of somewhere, formulated into this being. And in the grand scheme of things, your life means nothing. You are nothing. And we can eliminate you at any point in time. Right? And it sounds dark.
Yeah, that's heavy.
But, like, at the same time, it's also liberating.
Right, it's a reality check.
Because you're not that important.
Yeah.
Right? And part of the reason why I had all these problems when I was young was because I thought I was important. I thought that I was so important, and I thought that the world was here to do all these things for me, right? Like, give me women, give me this, give me that, give me a career, give me all this stuff. And the reality was, if I wanted a good life, I had to go out there and get it. I had to go out there and make that life for myself. And that includes not just taking things from people, but treating people the right way, treating people with respect, getting a partner that I respect and that I can work with and have a beautiful relationship with. And through that, life gets a lot better. But if you go around abusing people, you go around feeling sorry for yourself, you go around thinking that woe is me, like everything happens to me, all these messed up things happen to me and I don't know why, and I've been doing this and I've been doing that, then you're gonna have a miserable life, no matter what you do, no matter what you get, no matter how much money you have, no matter where you've gone, no matter what you've done in your past. That's the other thing. Like, it doesn't matter what you've done in your past. It doesn't matter if you served in the military. It doesn't matter if you've done anything. I have the utmost respect for everybody who served in the military, and I've dedicated a lot of my life to helping people who served in the military. But your past doesn't matter. What matters is what you're doing right now. What matters is where you're going, right? And if you do something and then you rest on your laurels and you say, oh, that was enough, then the rest of your life's not going to be that good.
Yeah, man. So there's so many things that are going on in there. So you obviously got humbled big time.
Yeah.
And you develop a value system now that you live a code finally when you didn't have that in the past. And you're able to look back on your past and not like judge yourself, because when I met you, I didn't know that aspect of you until, as we got to know each other and you share these stories. But it's amazing like how much like somebody can transform,
Yeah, and like I said, and like, I don't want to put it out like I'm perfect or anything, because I'm in the journey, you know what I mean? I'm still trying to figure everything out. And these are just things that I've come across, right? I'm probably more screwed up than anybody listening to this, right? And that's why I have to run every day. That's why I have to train. That's why I work relentlessly. It's because I'm still trying to tamp down all the demons that are in my head. And I'm trying to tamp down that selfish person that's in there. And I'm trying to make myself a better partner to my girlfriend. I'm trying to make myself a better person so I can help more people, right? It's definitely not about being perfect. It's about finding a path and continuing along the path.
Yeah, it's incredible, man. I mean, I've known you as somebody that has a lot of work ethic. Is that was the result? Did you always have that in the past, or that was just because as you're working through your demons and your issues, you just found like this is the way to like keep you organized, keep you like in the center of the chaos, you know?
You know, I actually think in a lot of ways I'm a naturally lazy person, right? And you know, growing up, I had a single mom. She worked 3 jobs when I was growing up, and you know, I owe my life to her. One of the things I would say though is that growing up, I was one of these kids who really didn't understand how things work. Like, I didn't understand that you had to put work in school. I didn't understand that, you know, even if you go to college, because my mom, we come from an immigrant family, and they're always like college, key to a better life. I didn't understand that, like, once you go to college, you got to work really hard afterwards if you want anything to do with it, right? And so again, I think that kind of like added to like my selfishness as a person, because I thought I would just do some things and then things would come to me, right? But it really wasn't until, I mean, I don't think I reached adulthood at all until I hit the age of like 30. I mean, I really don't. And so that's when I said to myself, you gotta do something. You gotta do something with your life. Now, I've always been a strong-willed person where I put work in. I learned that from being in the Marine Corps. I learned how to suffer from the Marine Corps.
Right. But you also had a background of lifting weights.
I had a background of lifting weights. I think,
wrestling, right?
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I think high school wrestling taught me more than anything at a young age about the value of hard work and independence. But again, like, what are you working on, right? Like, and I think that matters. Where are you focusing your efforts? And I worked really hard at being a bad person for a long time. Like, I worked really, really hard at being an asshole, because my mom didn't raise me that way. You know what I mean? The Marine Corps didn't teach me to be that way. Certainly didn't learn that in college, but I worked really hard to be a stereotypical asshole. I had to put work into it. And I'm telling you, like, you know, when you're talking about dating 4 or 5 girls at a time, like, you gotta put work into that. If that's what your life is like right now, you are actually putting effort into being an asshole, right? You're putting effort into carry that image over. You're putting effort into being selfish, right? Because that is a lot of effort. And so I was literally dedicating my life to being an asshole, I would say, from the age of like 17 all the way up to age 30. Even though I was serving in the Marine Corps, even though I was trying to do good with my life, I was putting effort into being an asshole.
And so with that, like, is there a way to live that kind of lifestyle without being an asshole? I mean, like, if you had communicated to those women that you aren't like a one woman kind of guy, that you are dating like multiple women, would that have changed anything?
No, and honestly, like, I've thought about that issue a lot, and like, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that you have to, I think intent matters more than anything, right? So in my mind, it really wasn't about developing polyamory or anything like that. It was about, what can I get out of this situation? And I think biologically, in a man, that's always the case.
Right.
I think that you can't get you might tell yourself that okay, I can love multiple people and things like that, but biologically, it's the most selfish thing in the world, right? And I think that if we're trying to tell ourselves something different, we're trying to fool our own biological makeup. Now, what has caused me to switch to being an avid advocate for monogamy? It's because I realized that monogamy can be so much better than that life. Because in your mind, feelings get really, really confused, right? And it takes getting your heart ripped out and shown to you in order to get those ways to be put down, right? It really, really does. And that is the only thing Like, I'm so grateful that girl left me, and that she married somebody else, and that she's having an amazing life right now, right? But the only, and that's because the only way I was ever going to change was by having my heart ripped out of me and shown to me, literally. Now, I'm not saying that it was an instant change. It took a lot of years of being very, very lonely. It took a lot of years of wondering what the heck was going on. But when I finally met the right person, and I finally met somebody that I could share my life with, it was the most amazing thing ever, right? And it took a lot of really false starts. I had been married. I got married to the wrong gal because I kept telling myself, "Oh, you're such a bad person. You're such an awful person for this life you used to live." And I was ripping myself apart. But it wasn't until I and I guess I'm putting a lot out here, but I'd gone through a divorce, right? And had been through all the loneliness, tried to fill the loneliness by just marrying somebody. That obviously didn't work out. Went through divorce, ended up like having my whole life like torn down, living out of my car and things like that.
Yeah, because at that time, from what I remember, you also started or co-founded a gym.
Yep. And I mean, we could go back and go into the chronological order, but
but it's just like all these different things that you're going through in your life, and a lot of it was like all at once.
Yeah. It just, I mean, so what happened was, moved out to California. Very, very lonely, like was like dating here and there and things like that. But really I felt like I had no heart. Like I couldn't be in a relationship, couldn't have emotions for anybody. And then I met I was about 4 years into my graduate degree, passed my doctoral dissertations, and decided, and I had been personal training at that point, decided I wanted to open up a gym. So I partnered up with my brother Eddie, down at Metroflex Gym in Long Beach. We created Metroflex Gym Long Beach, which became a pretty famous gym. A lot of guys came out of there, like C.T. Fletcher, Mike Rashid, awesome guys. A lot of people film out there, all that stuff. So it's super, super famous. But at the time, it wasn't famous when we started it, right? So I wasn't earning any money off of it or anything like that. And in that time period, I was like searching for some sort of stability. So I married this woman, and not to say that she was a bad woman, but our personalities did not mesh whatsoever. She was very, very different in the way she looked at things. She considered relationships kind of ownership. She was very, very jealous. She didn't like the fact that I was in the fitness industry, and my past didn't help, right? So I kind of felt like a lot of my past sins got recreated in this relationship, this horrible relationship I'd gotten into. I was so miserable, and I had no money to my name at that point. She wanted to live a certain type of lifestyle that involved us living in Orange County, and I had no money to be doing that, but I caved because I was weak, right? And that ended up in me getting a divorce and having to give up shares of my ownership in Metroflex Gym. And so, huge mistake in my life. But again, it had lessons. And it was that when I had everything taken away from me, because after making that decision, the strong decision to end the marriage and the strong decision to pull out of that, I was living out of my car, and it was at that point where I said, all right, I'm down to zero. I got nothing to lose. Why not try to build a life that I can be proud of? Why not try to build a life that I can respect? Why not try to build a life that I can be happy with, right? And I think proud was more important to me than happy at the time, right? So Mike Rashid had given me a computer, and he said, you're good with this, because I'd been coaching bodybuilders for a while. I've been coaching a lot of pro guys. I've been coaching fitness models, doing nutrition. I was known as like the nutrition guy around the gym. He said, you're so knowledgeable about this stuff. Why don't you just start doing videos? So back then, I mean, like, I just started my YouTube videos. I was, I think the first couple of videos are me driving around in my car, and that's because that's what I was literally living out of at the time. And then the next ones you'll see, they're me in the rented room that I was renting from my good friend Lucky, who lives down the street from Metroflex. So I rented a room right there, and it was at that time, I kind of like found my voice in talking about fitness, not just training people, but talking about fitness on YouTube. And then I was doing that, and I eventually met this girl. Her name's Shauna, and she's been, I immediately like I didn't immediately fall for her because I was very kind of still penitent, but about a couple of months into it, I think I was having a really bad day, and I said, let's go out to lunch. And so to go out to lunch, and it was in the middle of that lunch where I realized something. It was for the first time in years, I was talking to somebody and not thinking about being somewhere else. I was completely present, and and that in and of itself was the most amazing thing to me. I hadn't had that in a long time with anybody else, a long time. And so I immediately got it in my head. I need to be with this woman. So dating her, and she taught me a lot about what monogamy means, right? She probably doesn't know that, but she taught me a lot about the value of being with a person, getting to know a person, getting to know their quirks, getting to understand them, getting to understand their imperfections, their weaknesses, their strengths, what really being supportive means, investing not only in the person but in their family and in what they hold valuable to themselves. And I think that's been an amazing experience. It's been one of the most amazing experiences. But at that time, the universe kind of opened up for me, and as I was putting things out there on YouTube, people started calling me, asking me to do programs for them, and eventually I was making money that way. And then a couple of years after that, I'd been doing this for a while. I was making a lot of money, but I asked myself, what am I really doing here? Because I was dealing with ulcerative colitis, or the worst of the ulcerative colitis actually happened while I was living out of my car.
Okay.
And I was really, really sick at that point. But I had done it. I had overcome it, and I'd overcome it through nutrition. And I started asking myself, what was I really doing by coaching bodybuilders and coaching people on aesthetics? And I said to myself, well, you're helping people with their own vanity. You're helping people to train to become assholes.
Yeah, and kind of inflating more of the insecurities.
Inflating their insecurities. And so, I looked at what was going on in the world at the time, and, the Marine Corps was something that was really, really important to me. I was seeing a lot of veterans coming home who were suffering, who were dealing with depression, and I wanted to do something for them. And that's when I started Warrior Soul. Now, Warrior Soul started as a clothing company, and then moved into talking about health, fitness, wellness, and things that can help veterans live their best lives.
Right.
And it's been awesome. I've never earned a dime off of anything. I've gotten money, but never really earned a real dime off of it or anything like that. So the reason I keep doing it is because I love speaking to this community. I love talking to this community. I love providing things for this community.
Yeah, they're an amazing bunch, in terms of just, serving our country, being selfless that way. And then the sad thing is just coming back and not knowing what to do. There's no sort of transition out of the military, because I remember you were saying that it was a very comfortable life because you are just following orders. And
it's a great life. And this is the thing, to the young guys who are still serving and out there, and I don't think people outside of the military can understand this, but when you're in the military, you're the most free you'll ever be. you're the most free you'll ever be. And I think people think it's the opposite.
Right,
but
exactly.
You don't have to worry about paying rent. You don't have to worry about where you're living. You don't have to worry about choosing what you're going to put on every single day. You don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about a lot of bills because you're young, unless you're stupid and you go out and buy a car or do one of the any number of dumb things that I see young Marines and young service members do. But if
almost like an extension of your own home where you grew up with your parents.
Right. But the beauty of it is you have a single focus.
Yeah.
Right? That your attention's not really parsed by anything. Like I said, unless you bring distractions in, you have the opportunity to be really, really focused on one thing. I think that's a beautiful thing.
And so many guys I've seen like change because of the military, you know?
Yeah.
They've been undisciplined all over the place, and then they go into the military and it's like something changed where then now they're like orderly, they're clean, they're organized, you know?
Absolutely.
And so what's happening in the military that enables that? Like just single focus, like
I think it's a single focus, but it's also and when you talk about authority, it's not just authority, it's mentorship. Right? You've got people who really, they might be hard on you, but they care about you. They care about your future. They care about your contribution to the unit, right? And I think people in the civilian world, they misinterpret that as saying like, oh, you get turned into a machine. You don't get turned into a machine. The U.S. military is not looking for machines. They're looking for people who can think. They're looking for people who can make strong decisions, right? Have they made a lot of freaking mistakes in the past? Absolutely. But they're not looking for machines.
Yeah, because the people on the outside argue that you guys are getting brainwashed to just kill.
Yeah, and that's complete ignorance in my mind. That's somebody who doesn't know, who has never been there and is trying to speak about something they've never experienced. You know, this world we live in, it could be an ugly world, right? And so, when we think about all the relative comfort we live in here, and this is what I tend to lean very conservative, and that's not to say that like I'm a social conservative or anything like that, but like when I hear leftists talking about all the bad things about our country, I can't stand it, because if you look around us right now and everything that we've got going on, it's amazing. Like, I could walk down the street and find food, right? Water, I have clean water right here. There's a good portion of humanity out there that doesn't have clean water, that doesn't have everything we have at our disposal. For all classes in America, if you're earning $25,000 here in America right now, you're still in the top 3% of income earners in the world, right? I don't think people get that. They don't understand that.
No, they definitely don't, because they've never been outside of their bubble here.
Mm-hmm. And, and again, is our society absolutely perfect? No. But it's still, in my opinion, the greatest country that's ever existed. Right? As far as human rights, as far as the care we take, the absolute care we take when we do foreign interventions to try to avoid human death. A lot of people don't understand how much care we actually take to avoid that. And I'm sure there's people that are going to be like, oh, this alt-right, whatever guy coming on here talking about
but
that.
it's like where they getting their information from, like some outside source. Like, you've been in there, you've been in the military, you are a civilian now, so you've seen like what it is to be in and outside.
Yeah, and that's not like it's not like I've, I'm not the greatest like military hero of all time or anything like that. I'll tell you that, when I was in Iraq, it was really anticlimactic, but it was, when I look at what I saw over there as far as the way people were living, right, and kids dealing with polluted water and having to live in a place like that, and coming back here and seeing all the amazing things we have, like, I can't understand how anybody could say they hate living in this country. I can't understand how anybody could say that this country doesn't provide everything that we need. It's an amazing country. It's an amazing place we live in.
Yes, and that's because of the military, like in the sense that they're protecting us. You guys have protected us from this world that doesn't have our best interest in mind, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely, and not just the military, the police, the first responders, and I give a lot of credit to industry. I mean, like, so many of us, we think of like corporate America as like this evil thing, and yeah, again, you know, I'm a big critic of factory farming. I'm a big critic of a lot of things that happen, and
the downsides of corporatism.
But at the same time, like those titans of industry that have contributed to our infrastructure here, that have helped us to be able to create things for the world that allow us to do things like this podcast, right? Like, you can post this podcast right now and it's going to go out to everywhere. I have a podcast too, and I got downloads from like Turkmenistan, right? Turkmenistan is one of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and they barred a lot of media, but somehow my podcast is getting through to them, right? I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
And all that came out of innovation, right? All that came out of industry, and we have such good lives because of that.
Right. Back to the military and like the sort of brotherhood, sisterhood that's developed from like being part of a unit, being part of a team and a family. What's going on like after you get out? Like, why is it so hard for a lot of the vets to integrate back into society? Is it because they miss that camaraderie, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a number of different factors. So first things first, like if you look at the high suicide rate amongst veterans, most of that suicide rate isn't amongst combat veterans, right? So like most of the people who are committing suicide have actually never fired a shot or had a shot fired at them, right? So like, that is not to say that it's not still a problem, right? And so why does this happen? Why does it exist? And I think it's a function of a number of different things. A lot of guys, when they come back, they don't really have a set mission that they're coming back to, right? So I think that one of the things that can really, really help people is that they find a set purpose. They find something to do afterwards. And we've known people who have found their purpose and it completely transformed their lives, right? And that is one of the biggest things. Because a lot of guys, they'll just say, all right, I'm gonna get out and I'm just gonna be done with this. I'm gonna go back home. But, you know, part of it is also, you come back and what are you gonna do? You're gonna settle down, you're gonna live a quiet lifestyle, and you used to have this innate focus on what you were doing, but now you're kind of scattered all over the place. And I think not having that purpose really contributes to depression, really contributes to people being really down on themselves.
Yeah, right? Not just the military, but everybody.
Right. And then of course, you know, there's other factors here amongst the people who are committing suicide. How much does traumatic brain injury and low-level traumatic brain injury come into play? Like the things our friend Andrew Marr and Dr. Mark Gordon are working on.
It certainly helped me, like playing ice hockey and surfing waves.
Absolutely. And what we're talking about is the brain inflammation from low-level traumatic brain injury. And one of the things that Andrew and Dr. Mark Gordon are saying is that even, you know, manning a 50 caliber machine gun and getting shaken up, that can induce a traumatic brain injury. And so, you know, I think that that you have to look at that physiological component, right? That what could be going on physiologically, right?
So yeah, you're looking at psychological, the lack of purpose, and then physiologically that there could be some inflammation, chronic inflammation, or damage to the brain from impact.
Right. Now, and then there's the other aspect of trauma, right? Which I do think is a real thing. There's people who have lost friends, who have experienced,
witnessed
heartbreak, who have developed trauma. I interviewed a gentleman named Josh Mons on my podcast, and he'd actually been shot and killed by a sniper in Iraq, and brought back to life by a crack army medical team that helped him to survive that ordeal. And that trauma affected him a great deal, but he didn't talk about it for a long time until he came out with his book, The Beauty of a Darker Soul. And in cases like that, if you're not really integrating those experiences into your experience, if you're not really integrating those experiences and learning from them and admitting that the trauma is there, and not trying to hide it, or if you're hiding it, then that can lead to a whole host of really bad issues down the line.
Right. So there's a contribution of like having sort of these shadows running through your demons. You're not having like a proper outlet, one, and two, you're not like you're saying, like taking responsibility for it, and then three, finding a way to like maybe channel it or alchemize it into a purpose.
Right. You got to own it, right? And I think what Josh has done by writing his book, The Beauty of a Darker Soul, is that he started to own it, and he's teaching other people how to own their trauma and not hide behind. He calls it the shield of your story, right? There's a lot of people who hide behind the shield of their story, and they'll say, all right, well, I did this, and then I came back and I overcame it in this way, and then, but it's like, did you really overcome it? Are you really all okay there? And I think a lot of people, like,
there's a lot of pride that's coming out.
Well, there is a lot of pride when you overcome something that's so great, like you come out of depression, you come out of a bad situation, and you think you found a solution. A lot of times you're sitting there and you think that you're okay, and you start lying to yourself and telling yourself you're okay.
Yeah, it's a different kind of pride, right? Because there's like the pride that you accomplished something, and then there's the pride that is more of like an ego pride, like, I'm better than this, and nothing's ever gonna take me down. And,
right. And then you start trying to believe the lie.
Yeah.
And you start believing it yourself.
And then you get humbled somehow, right?
Well, and that's the thing, and that's why I say to people, like, and that's why I think Josh Montz's book is such an amazing book, because it goes into that concept of hiding behind that. What are you hiding behind when you're telling somebody that you're completely okay, right? Even if you think that you've overcome it yourself, are you truly okay, right? Are you hiding anything? And if you're hiding anything, why are you hiding it? Is it because of ego? Is it because you're trying to promote this story to the world?
Yeah,
right?
You're trying to protect your identity.
Right. And that's why I said at the beginning of this interview, and I'm sure people would see this from the way I'm speaking, I'm still not 100% like okay, and that's not because of PTSD, that's not because of TBI, that's not because of anything except the fact that I'm a human being and I have so many flaws, just like all of us. But I think the beauty of it is, you got to admit to those flaws. You got to show people that they're there, and you got to own those flaws, and that's the only way you're ever going to be able to fix them.
Yeah, and that's the irony, because when you do that, then you are strong, you are like relatable to people, and you're not like some superhero, which I think you are, because I've seen you in action, but I've also seen you like just being human, but admitting to being human and being vulnerable and like sharing your story is gives people like hope that like they too are able to, if they hit rock bottom, they live in a country where it's just zero. It's not negative, they can actually start from like zero, not like 6 feet under,
Yeah, no, exactly.
Like those other places, like you're a negative, like no matter how hard you work, for the most part, like you're not really gonna be able to make those step function leaps like we can in this country.
Right.
And yet everybody's complaining about this country and how it sucks and how all this stuff, and it's like there's so much division going on with just simple things like gender roles and all this other stuff like politics, and where it's like, well, hold on a sec, we're all human, we're all here, we all start from nothing, we come out of our mothers, and then we're lucky to be here, we can do things, And I guess the thing is that it may take time to find out what that is, you know.
Right.
And we have our journeys, and what's cool about you is that you're being able to like share all of you, and that gives, I think, inspires me. It motivates me to see you in action, how hard you work, you know, how many hours you put in, but at the same time you still like take care of your health with like a health challenge. You know, you owned everything, and so you're doing your best, which I love. Your tagline for Warrior Soul is like living your best life, right? Like taking the resources and being resourceful with what you have, you know. And hopefully over time, with the benefit of living in this country and the benefit of the internet through like corporatism, right? Like that technology and innovation came out of all that, right? It's enabling us to sort of live more of an abundant life. But even if we just stay at this level, we're like way wealthy beyond the rest of the world.
And that's what, it's one of the things that bothers me the most is that every time I turn on CNN, every time I'm looking at CNN, they're concentrating on the most frivolous things. Now, do I like Donald Trump as a person? No, absolutely not. I think he's an asshole, right? I think he puts effort into being an asshole. At the same time, if you look at the job he's doing as president, he's doing a pretty damn good job. Now, me saying that alone immediately categorizes me as somebody who's supposedly an alt-right Nazi or something like that, right? There's a lot of people who will stop listening to everything else I've said because I said that Donald Trump is doing a good job as president.
Which is funny because you used to be a socialist Marxist.
And people don't understand that either. You know, I was a graduate student. I was a typical graduate student. I've studied Marx. I had, for a period of time, I considered myself a leftist, a really short period of time. But it was because I literally witnessed the corruption of the left, the corruption of the thought. And what do I mean by the corruption of the thought? It's not like the corruption of like taking money.
Well, first of all, like what led you to lean over to the left? Like what caused you to go? Well, I like what they're talking about.
I would say it was a combination of things, right? But the biggest thing that I think caused me to head over that way was because my life wasn't going very well, right? When I got out of the military, I had a lot of questions about why we went into the Iraq War, right? And do I still have those questions? Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, what happened for me was I became very, very disillusioned. And I was not enjoying my life at all. And so I put it all on President George W. Bush, right, at the time. And so, you know, back at the University of Connecticut, I was looking at a lot of different things going on, and I had joined a couple of different protest type groups. And what would set me away from that, though, and what turned me against it was sitting in a meeting, and people are talking about how we need to have social solidarity with China, right? And I'm like, we need to have social solidarity with China. We can't criticize China. That's basically what they were saying, because they were our socialist brothers. This is the Chinese government is not better than the United States government. Executing people, oppressing entire races of people in Tibet. And that's where I was like, okay, this is a morally corrupt premise of thought, because what they're doing is they're taking they're taking actual information and facts and changing them to provide for their preferred narrative, right? And so the conclusion I came to was this: all right, what do I think it was wise for us to invade Iraq? No, I don't think it was wise for us to invade Iraq. Did a lot of people get hurt when we invaded Iraq? Yeah, a lot of people got hurt. If you look at Iraq today, is it on a path that's better than it would have been had Saddam Hussein still been in power? Absolutely, 100%. It is on a better path today than it would have been if Saddam Hussein was still in power. And I can say that conclusively. Now, as far as a lot of the things I see going on out there, upon close examination of what the left is teaching, you look at things, there are very few facts there. There's a lot of feelings, right? A lot of facts getting changed around to support feelings.
Right.
And that's where myself, as a social scientist by training, as somebody who likes the truth, that's where I was like, this is a completely corrupt way of thinking. Right? I became more and more conservative the more I became older and understood what conservative values truly mean, right? And what they mean being dedicated to. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to say you're wrong for living your life the way you are, right?
Yeah, or having feelings.
Right, or having feelings. I'm not trying to say...
But you're not like full on all the way conservative to the right. There is some sort of middle ground.
Well, here's what I would say, right? I'm very much in favor of the LGBT community being able to live the lives that they want to live, right? If you want to have a gender change, absolutely, right? If you want to, if gay couples want to get married, absolutely, I've always been in favor of that. If you want to smoke cannabis, 100%. You want to do any drug outside whatsoever, 100%, right? I think on a level of rights, I think that's awesome, right? You need to be able to do that. But when it starts to affect me, right? When it starts to affect other people's lives, right? That's when I start to have a problem with it. That's when I have a huge problem with it. When you're starting to try to change the facts in order to support your narrative, such as being able to have a former man be able to compete as an Olympic lifter, I really do have a huge problem with that.
Well, especially if a former man, well, I would go the opposite, but a man turns into a woman. Yeah, former man turns into a woman. That's not the opposite. And competes in MMA against women.
Oh yeah. No,
yeah, that's horrible.
Absolutely, and I consider that to be like, I don't like that. But again, what are we seeing in politics these days? And what we're seeing is that the left is completely intolerant of alternative opinions, while the right has begun to incorporate things like LGBTQ rights, like cannabis.
Yeah,
right. We're seeing more and more conservatives being in favor of legalization of cannabis.
Right.
And that is because the left has become so closed off to the rest of the world that the right is becoming bigger and more wide open.
Right.
And there's room to be in the middle in the right.
Absolutely. Conservatives are maybe becoming more environmentally conscious too.
Yeah.
So, but the point is that like we're all human beings, so it's like that politics of being human, like people like to like choose one side and not see the upsides and downsides of either sides or multiple sides, and I think that as we mature, we can like hold space for different viewpoints and perspectives.
Well, none of that, why are we so sensitive, right? Why do hundreds of thousands of people get offended if a girl wears a Chinese gown to her prom, right? An Asian gown to her prom. Why are we focused on what this girl wore to her prom, right? And all right, I get the whole cultural appropriation thing, but am I going to culturally appropriate you for wearing blue jeans? You're not a white guy. Like, why are you wearing blue jeans right now?
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Man, dude, I'm getting really sensitive right now.
No, but why are we focused on these things? Why are we not focused on working together to build the infrastructure of this country? Why are we not focused on working together to help our children to eat better, to make better choices about what they're putting into their bodies? 1/3 of the population out right now has pre-diabetes or diabetes. Why are we not focused on that? You know, and that's huge implications for our future.
Right. What do you think's going on? Because my opinion is it is maturity. Because when you're younger, you're a little bit like more impressionable. You haven't like had enough context of your life and wisdom, experiences. So you get distracted by these shiny objects, including media that focuses on these sort of little tiny issues that aren't even issues at all. Some girl decides to wear a Chinese dress that's a Caucasian girl to prom, like big fucking deal, right? But everybody like gets sensationalized by it, you know, and they know like how that works, like media, advertising, marketing, they know how that works. So people that don't have the ability to think for themselves, to question things, are sucked in. I find myself get sucked in, but then I can like catch it, you know? It's like, how soon can you catch it when you're younger and you don't have that experience, or no one ever taught you that in a class, like how to question everything.
Right, and I think one of the things that we're going to be seeing over the next decade is that a college education is going to become less and less valuable. And the reason why it's become less and less valuable is because these types of things, the super sensitivity, that's what's being taught in college. You can't survive in the real world if you have that super sensitivity, right? You can't survive in the real world if everything offends you and that's what you focus on.
Yeah.
Like you can't, right? I think that we're going to be seeing college education, you know, become worthless at a certain point. It's going to be life experience that's really going to count. You know, I think the only reason that universities still exist right now is simply because of normative behavior.
Right, and tradition.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about like, say someone like Donald Trump, right? Like I don't know the guy, and obviously he is like a big change in the system, which is like really exciting. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people were looking for, was some sort of change, some actual change, you know, with somebody that doesn't have like politics experience come in. And it's really neat to see some of the effects. And the thing that I don't agree with him is like the things that he says, but I also respect that because that's part of freedom. Mm-hmm. And I really like how he's throwing like curveballs left and right to people, you know, because of the things that he says. It's like so outlandish, but at the same time it's like it's almost freeing, you know. He's in some ways just changing, throwing a monkey wrench in there.
Well, yeah, again, I think that do I like everything he says? No, absolutely not. You know, but the problem I have with it is that the media is almost blind to anything good that's happened, right? Okay. So we take this latest thing with North Korea, where North Korea has come to the table. It looks like, you know, things are going to be okay with them. And the media, you know, a few months earlier was saying we're going to get into a nuclear conflict with Korea. Trump's getting us there. But then they come to the table and they're like, hey, let's sit down, let's negotiate this out, guys. And the media is ignoring that aspect of it. Instead, they're focusing on Trump getting us into a conflict with Iran now, when, you know, nothing's.
But this is a big deal that North Korea and South Korea are talking to
Yes,
each other.
exactly. Like, this is historic.
Yes.
And the media's like, all right, let's talk.
And he did it without like dropping bombs or having
without
a war,
dropping a single bomb on them.
Like,
did it, not a single live. Well, of course, there are hundreds of thousands of people who are suffering in North Korea and people who suffered trying to get over the border. And that conflict has been going on for a long, long time now. But with Trump didn't have to drop a bomb. He didn't have to make military interventions or anything like that. He did what he was supposed to do, and he held the line, right? And people forget that that's part of diplomacy, right? I studied international politics in graduate school, and that was my area of expertise was understanding negotiations, right? If you're not willing to hold the line, if you're not willing to take a tough stance, then you aren't going to get anything done. And what I see with what's going on with Trump anything positive about him gets like a subhead.
Right, and then they focus on him being like a womanizer.
Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, that whole thing. It's like, well, I mean, he is, you know, a man, a businessman. Like, maybe you don't agree with his values, but, you know, of course they're going to find dirt on anybody who ever ends up in office.
And again,
me, you.
They'll find tons of dirt on me.
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing. Like, you know, I just think, like I said, he's an imperfect individual, but none of us are perfect.
Right.
You know, and I think that one of the problems people have with him, particularly white liberals, is that they hold up a mirror. It's a mirror being held up to their face about their own imperfections.
Right.
Right. And I think that there's the idea of white guilt is a real thing, and so a lot of people are really ashamed of him. Right. He's kind of like your old racist grandpa. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
and that's not
hilarious. I mean, like,
I don't even think he's racist. I don't think he's racist at all.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like, because that's what people are treating him like.
Right. I mean, the things that if we were, you know, analyzed with some camera, it's getting pretty cold here, right?
Yeah.
In California. Yeah, it's just funny that if people were. If there was a camera live in our car as we're driving, some of the shit that comes out of our mouth, we would all be racist, right? Like, we would all, and just growing up was like even comedy, just hearing jokes.
Yeah. Some of the shit we all do on our own, like, you know, and I refuse to believe that people out there are so perfect in their own thoughts, in their own mind, that there's nothing non-offensive that goes on through their heads, right? And the narrative out there is it's okay to be offensive. It's okay to hurt somebody as long as they're a conservative. And that's what I hate. I can't stand that because, like it or not, over half this country is conservative. Over half this country loves guns. Over half this country loves country music, right? And those are the people who, in large part, go off to serve. And you know what else? Half this country is also minority, right? Half this country is also progressive, and they have more democratic values, and that's okay too. But the point is, we can all live together.
Yeah. And
we can all be here together and have a productive debate without knocking each other over the head with a padlock, like what happened at Berkeley with a conservative who was trying to support, you know, Yiannopoulos, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just garbage. It's complete garbage. And the same thing with those guys with their tiki torches out in Virginia. I can't stand those guys, right? That was so stupid. But that doesn't, just because I'm conservative doesn't mean that I'm a KKK, racist, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just, like, you know, lump somebody into one category and associate, like, you with a bunch of, like, racists.
It's the first time I'm ever really talking about all this stuff. So, like, a lot of people are going to be like, what?
Yeah.
What the hell? Huh? So, yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's cool. One final thing here is just, you know, one, like, we are human, right? And two, like, generalizations, like, get everybody in trouble because we're all, like, so different individually, too.
Yeah.
You know? And then just, like, the idea of, for example, like, guns. Like, I think that when the kids came together and protested about gun laws, I think that's a beautiful thing because they're basically saying, like, there's something that's wrong here, that we have to go to school and worry about getting shot up. So I don't think the answer is to ban guns outright, but I think the answer is to develop some sort of system that screens out like people that are psychologically unstable, that is like getting a true license in a sense that you have to, like, go through a bunch of hoops in order to gain access to certain types of weapons, you know,
right,
or weapons in general. It's like driving a car, but even like driving a car, which has now become a weapon,
mm-hmm,
right? Is there, like, some other test that people have to go through to make it a little bit harder?
Well, let me say something about this, like, because I love the fact that those kids got out and protested. I love the fact that there is
that's the beauty of our country,
a voice in America that's talking about gun laws. What I don't like is how the NRA and other pro-gun organizations got demonized. Because let me tell you something about the NRA. They're teaching gun safety. They're teaching people how to utilize firearms in a responsible manner. And it is not the members of the NRA or any other pro-Second Amendment organization that is going out there and committing these massacres, these heinous crimes, right? So to protest the NRA is completely wrong. Right? It's completely misfounded. To protest gun owners is completely misfounded. So how do we get things done on this issue? Well, I'll tell you the way not to get things done. The way not to get things done is to, the second one of these tragedies happen, to get on and say, look at what you did, gun owners, Second Amendment supporters, look at what you did, NRA. That's not the way to get anything done. You think you're going to gain any supporters that way to try to fix this horrible problem? You're not. What you're going to do is you're going to turn off half the country. You're going to turn them off, and you're going to make them both understand that they cannot work with you, right? The way forward is for all of us to work together. And if you want responsible gun laws, stop pointing the finger. Stop pointing the finger at gun owners. Stop pointing the finger at the NRA. Because most people who've never handled a gun, most people who've never fired an AR-15, they don't understand anything about that firearm, right? We have this Congress, a famous one, famous video. This congressman gets on, he talks about this ghost gun, and I think he says it can fire 15,000 rounds in a minute. That's completely idiotic, right? People don't have, we have the most firearms of any country in the world, and a lot of people in this country just don't understand firearms, right?
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I think there's a way forward, but all this, I'm on this side and you're on that side, you're fucking evil.
Yeah, you're
That's
wrong.
Gotta stop,
I'm right.
right? Because if you look at your average NRA member, they're a very responsible citizen. They're somebody who probably takes a role in their community.
Oh yeah.
They're probably somebody who contributes to helping people throughout their community, right? Because they're volunteering in an organization, right? And those are not the people you need to be going after, right? We need to be sitting down. We need to be talking with each other. We gotta stop pointing fingers.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what you're saying about diplomacy and conversation and discussion and, like, you know, looking at all of the issues and what's the best way to solve it, right? Like, maybe we need to legalize drugs to eliminate, like, black market and the access to weapons through the underground, you know, like all these different variables are coming into play, but everybody likes to make it black and white.
And we need to change our children's nutrition. I mean, like, this bottom line, feeding them all that sugar, putting the chemicals into their body. Yeah. That's horrible.
Yeah, keeping them in front of a screen, like not moving their bodies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And parent them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. You want to know, in my mind, what's probably caused more school massacres than guns? Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like the entertainment industry.
Right.
You know, watch some of these movies. How many people die?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's desensitized.
And
video
it
games.
boggles. And the thing that makes me laugh about it is that the same people who made those movies are the first people to get on Twitter and demonize the NRA.
Right.
You know.
And yeah, it's down to, you know, what kind of supervision and like parenting and mentorship that children are having, right? So cool, man. Well, that was a great episode, brother.
Cool. Yeah, can I plug myself real quick?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, everybody just go ahead, Chris.
Hey, come on over to www.warriorsoulogoge, that's AGOGE.com. And what you'll find over there is a lot of awesome stuff. We'll talk about nutrition. We have my podcast up there, the Warrior Soul Podcast, with my interviews with Tony FlowReal. And I'm not guaranteeing this, but you know, the 500th visitor every day gets $1 million. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, all that funny internet marketing stuff, man, those schemes. And but yeah, man, everybody just check out WarriorSoulAgoge.com. A lot of awesome resources there. really cool stories with different people from all walks of life, and a lot of veterans, of course. And Chris Albert, man, thanks for being my brother, and thanks for coming on to Hangry and Horny.
Thank you, man. Thank you for being my brother. I always love you.
I love you, brother.
All right, man.
Peace.